and welcome off the rack. I'm Sal.
And I'm Tiffany.
Today we're going to do something a little different or familiar if you just watched our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review from a couple weeks ago. We take this show, it's usually a comic book review show where we take a comic book from last week and then break it down by its basic elements. But because a huge blockbuster comic book movie came out, we thought we'd talk about that. And we're just going to basically apply the same basic principle of the old show to this format. So
yeah,
let's just talk about Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins, and coming out from Warner Brothers and DC, part of the DC Extended Universe. There have been, what, 4? Man of Steel,
Yes.
Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman.
right. Thank you.
Yes. So, what we like to do is we talk about our initial thoughts about what we read or watched in this case, and then we talk about that more in depth, and then give you our recommendations. So, what did you think?
I can honestly say I enjoyed it.
I can also say that I enjoyed it. And not in any kind of ironic or angry or bitter or like Marvel fanboy kind of way. I just genuinely enjoyed it, and I steered clear of most of the controversy surrounding the movie. And when I say controversy, I mean the kind of stuff that comes up whenever any movie that empowers any group, or that any group chooses to use for empowerment, will undoubtedly attract.
I stayed away from everything. Like, I didn't read reviews, even though like everyone was like, "There's a positive buzz." I'm like,
right? You're like, I don't want to know if it's
like,
positive. I don't want to know if it's good.
I just want to go, which I've tried to do with pretty much all the movies. Same with Marvel. Same with DC. Like, you know.
Same with Disney movies or anything you watch.
Yeah, really.
I just trying to have a pure experience.
Exactly. If it's something I know I'm going to go and see, I do try to do that because I'd rather allow myself to have my own experience. This movie really does its own thing. It certainly connects.
Yes.
To
it does that nice thing
going on in the DCEU, but like.
But you could easily cut that if you wanted to. But,
right.
But it's not obtrusive or offensive or egregious.
But really, what I mean is like Patty Jenkins was like, I'm making a Wonder Woman movie, and my understanding is this is a woman who understands the character. She used to watch the TV show. She used to read the old comics. Like, she knows this. Yeah. Now, I haven't seen any of her short films, but it's also my understanding that she used to do short superhero-style films.
Ah, I was not aware.
Prior to doing Monster.
Interesting.
So this is a director who was ready for this chance. Yeah. And, I think that it was a good call to bring in someone who had a limited amount of experience making these kinds of movies. Right. And just throw them in there. It's like another company that does
where they take
films.
Somebody who, well, especially in Phase 1, they take a director who has proven that they know what they're doing, but has had some slumps or not as much success as they would have liked. Yeah. And then being like, why don't you do this? Yep.
I think overall this film succeeds in capturing the spirit of the character.
Yeah, being my limited experience with Wonder Woman, I've read about Wonder Woman, I've read Wonder Woman comics, but I'm not an avid Wonder Woman fan. That doesn't mean that I don't like the character, it's more that I just happen to have not read a lot of Wonder Woman. Right. Over the last 5 years or so, I probably read more Wonder Woman than in the previous rest of my life, but I will say that I think it does kind of spiritually honor the character in a very, very engaging and authentic way.
Yeah, now look, the fact is, she's had a long history. I mean, we were talking about decades.
Oh, we're talking about
stories.
The female equivalent of Superman.
Right. So, of course, they're going to have to pick and choose. Now, for some people, I know it's going to come down to the origin, and it's funny because they touched on 2 very strong opinions on the origin, and went with one over the other.
They went with both, but they then were like, they did the Brian Azzarello.
They did. But the fact is, like, you know, if you could separate yourself from that, look, if you're a Greg Rucka fan, if you can separate yourself from that, again, I think it just does a good job of capturing Wonder Woman, who she is, what she's all about.
Yeah, I think that this movie does a good job of at least telling you that it doesn't really matter where she comes from as much as it matters what she does and how she's
going to proceed.
Yeah, how she goes forward.
It does. I think it does an incredible job of, you know, allowing comic book fans to enjoy the film, but also inviting those who enjoyed the Linda Carter TV series to come in and experience this.
Or whose only connection to Wonder Woman is a passing or fleeting understanding of a Linda Carter show.
Yes, while not pretending like the comics don't exist.
No,
like, no, look, you need to understand, a lot has happened since you saw Wonder Woman on TV.
Right.
And look, we get that, but we can't ignore all of what that has happened.
No, it's
so
true.
we're going to keep going, but like, come along with us.
Yeah, but it doesn't also pay lip service to like everyone else's cultural touchstone. Like, okay, so Linda Carter, she's still around, she's still gorgeous, she's still active, and she's still acting, and so like it would have been easy to make her Hippolyta.
Oh yeah.
And just have that Starsky and Hutch moment where you're like, oh look, there's the person I reckon, and they didn't do that, and I really appreciate it. Like I really like they can make it, you know, shades of nostalgia without catering to it or being beholden to it.
Yeah, and they definitely so it's interesting because in the movie they go out of their way, they call it both Themyscira and Paradise Island,
which is how I've always associated that place.
Right? And I actually have a coworker who I mentioned I was going to see the movie, and they were like, I used to watch the Linda Carter show.
Right.
They're older. And they were like, I always remember when she'd go back to her island and she wore like the white robes and all that stuff.
Wow.
But it's funny, couldn't name the island, but these key moments that I was like, if she saw this movie now, she would be able to make that connection.
Right.
Without them having to do that exact thing.
Agreed.
Which is why, like, again, I think it's just such an incredible feat to take all of these like cultural versions of this character and make it work.
Yeah, and somehow make it work. Now, okay, so let's talk about how the movie looks and how it feels, because there's a big element that I immediately recognized as being deliberate, and it was the color palette.
Oh yeah.
It felt like so I've had some opinions about previous DCEU movies, but one thing that I've always noticed is that they happen to be dark. They happen to have dark subject matter, with one exception for me, but they all have a very, very muted, dark tone.
Yeah.
This movie is no exception.
No.
But it's selective, and the reason for it is very apparent.
Oh, yeah.
The dark, gloomy, somber, muted, sepia-esque tone of the movie is such because it's trying to portray, number one, an old time, and number two, a dark period in humanity's history.
It's also, I think, meant to, for Diana herself, to be like, Themyscira, Paradise Island, it's beautiful.
It's bright, colorful, beautiful, and they don't mute it or make it dark or anything. No, it's as pristine and gorgeous as you would want it to be if you wanted it to be realized in real life. And then when you enter man's world, it's muted and dark. And of course we go to London, so it's even more like claustrophobic and dark. And
and it's during wartime.
Yeah, and, so everything's always, there's just movement and
end all wars.
Yeah. No, it's I think it looks great, and it's deliberately so, and that's really...
Yeah.
I'm glad they weren't afraid, because they were clearly, like... They're like, okay, what can we do right? How can we differentiate, and how can we, like, make this its own thing?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, while it is a big part of the DCEU, and I think it's going to be kind of, like, the new jumping-off point, like, this will be kind of like the unofficial Phase 2 for DCEU.
Right.
I think that it could have been easy for them to try and tie it in with that, but when they were making this movie, they're like, we have to make it so that it does tie in, but it also needs to, if all else fails, stand on its own, so that 20 years from now, people can throw on Wonder Woman and watch it and not go, why is Green Lantern in this movie? You know, no weird connections.
Oh yeah, no, I think also it was smart. I mean, again, I know I said we were going to talk about the other movies since we're just doing a Wonder Woman review, but they've established a darker color palette throughout the films as to date, and I think to not follow suit with that in some way would either make it seem like this movie was not as tied intrinsically, or not to be taken, like, quote-unquote, as seriously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To start with it brightening here.
Yeah, it would have been weird.
I think it was a very intelligent way to handle that. To give it its time, to be colorful and bright, and, like, you know, be like, okay, cool, and then to just take that and have it actually have impact.
Right.
So I just thought that was really smart. Yeah. Very smart.
The acting in the movie, let's talk about that a little bit.
I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, like, in the very brief amount of time that I saw Gal Gadot playing Wonder Woman, she didn't, like, sway me either way. I was like, I have no idea. Like, you're in this.
Oh, you mean in the previous movies?
In the previous movies that we've seen her, like, I was just like, I have no idea what to think of you.
No, it's true. She isn't given much, and she doesn't really do a lot.
Right. And I mean, like, it's understandable. It's not her movie. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so okay. So I didn't know what to think going into this. You know, for me, like, I had in my mind's eye what Wonder Woman should look like, and by the time all is said and done, like, she had, like, assuaged any
concerns or fears you
that
had.
I had.
I remember in the beginning, and this is like telling tales out of school here, you were not a fan.
I wasn't. I really, like, just seeing her, but, like, I always say that it's like, look, that's just the look. You know what I mean? Like, swing the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's your job.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove me wrong. And she did, 100%. Like, she completely proved me wrong.
I thought she did a nice job. I have no complaints about what she did. There were a couple moments that I really felt like connected with the character, and the things that she does I bought. You know, it's not like there was any moment where I'm like, no.
Right.
The only thing that I will make a little bit of light about is her accent.
Right.
And the fact that, like, that is her accent.
Yes.
She can't shake it.
No.
And so they were like, let's make it Themyscirian, and so everyone in Themyscira will also have that accent. And that must have been really hard for that poor little version of Wonder Woman to have to try and approximate Gal Gadot's voice. But, you know what? Like, that was legitimately, like, the only real major complaint, besides, like, a couple things, which we'll talk about, like, later when we get into spoiler territory.
Okay, alright, that's fair.
But overall, the only thing that I really, like, can critique is that it was funny how they worked around Gal Gadot's complete inability to transform her voice in any way.
Right, and
which is fine.
Part of it,
by the way, that's taking lemons to make a lemonade out of it. I think that's cool.
It's true. You know, I think Chris Pine did a great job.
Yes, Chris Pine. He's interesting in this movie because usually he's the leading guy.
Yes,
she's the protagonist. He is our ride-along character to understand these characters. It's interesting to have both of them. And thinking about it just now, I'm thinking, like, do they compete for the role of the protagonist? Because, you know, Chris Pine, because of, you know, studio concerns about a female-led action-adventure movie. I don't think so, but I think that Chris Pine's approach to the character was, this is your movie, this is what you do, this, you know, you're the main character of your story, just like the rest of the members of the crew are the lead characters in their story. And Chris Pine, surprisingly enough, just such a natural... he brings such a natural charisma and believability to his character that even if he's like, I'm doing this and I'm the main character, he doesn't jockey for control over the scene.
It's my understanding that that's how he was on set. Like, he was very much like just
whatever.
Very, like, hey, like I'm Steve Trevor,
right?
And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, for me,
but
Steve
this movie's
Trevor,
called Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
so
in my reading experience, Steve Trevor is a footnote in Wonder Woman's history.
Yeah,
there is no question that's the case in this movie. However, he's pretty much the supporting character. He's the main. He's the main male lead.
Right.
Of this movie.
Well, so I think Patty Jenkins approached it as being like how Lois, while now has kind of transformed herself to Superman, like in like what in the comics and like what it is that how she I guess is handled and what it is that she is to him. Like, in a sense, initially it was you always have to have someone believe in the hero,
right? And
that's who Lois was originally to Superman, and that is how Patty Jenkins took Steve Trevor.
Yeah, and you know, Steve Trevor, it would be easy to write off that character, and make him very stock and very wooden and very, you know, forgettable, and almost to try and make Wonder Woman seem more interesting,
right?
And they don't do that.
No.
They have Chris Pine, and they're like, just use him. And make him fun, like do all the things you like about this actor, and let him play with this character so that the audience is just enjoying it. The rest of the team, they all do a lovely job.
You know, it's funny,
but they don't steal the show.
No, they're incredible caricatures, and
that's a good call.
They're incredible caricatures, and they each have their own moment where it's a kind of a learning moment for like us, for her, for whatever. It's world building in a fantastic sense. And I think we're missing one of them. I'm guessing it was cut.
Yeah, there's only we get a lot about his character, but we don't get any conclusion. For him.
But like we kind of see the ending. So like I don't know if they like took a scene out. Maybe we'll see later on. I thought they were all great. Etta Candy, I was so concerned about her character in the trailers. Yeah, and they handled her, I thought, really well. It was just enough.
I don't like that character. In the movie, she was in it so little that it was wholly inoffensive.
Well, that's
there was no I was no way like, oh, more of this character.
Right.
She could have easily been too much.
Yes.
But instead, she's just used. She's legitimately she's comic relief, and she's like, she is a different portrait of femininity in the society. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and she did a nice job.
Yeah, I agree. I think all of the Amazons were handled really, really well.
The only one who I felt was not the strongest actor, regrettably, was Hippolyta.
Yeah.
Which is like, damn it.
Well, and here's what's funny about that is her aunt, Antiope,
Yeah.
I thought was great. And I remember at the end seeing the credits, and I was like, wait a minute. And I started piecing it together based on a name I saw, went immediately to IMDb, and confirmed that in fact it is Buttercup from The Princess Bride, who plays Antiope, and she's phenomenal. Yeah. She steals the show from Hippolyta.
Oh, easily.
Like,
she
is Hippolyta.
She steals the parental role from Hippolyta as well, narratively and also acting-wise. She's just more fun to watch.
Yeah. It's almost like those two ended up being, almost like the Hippolyta split.
Yeah.
Like, you've got the loving, caring mother, but you also have the warrior leader.
Right.
And,
I mean, you needed those two characters to be separate, but it's too bad. Because...
Yes. However, I can see why they did that for spoiler reasons. Which I will not reveal. No.
Right. But, yeah. She did a nice job.
Yeah.
But Hippolyta was the weakest one in this movie, which is too bad. And by the way, it wasn't like she was glaringly terrible. No. It was just that was no... I felt nothing.
I think it's noticeable because she is surrounded by other actors who were doing a very good job.
Well, and doing something.
Yeah. Like, even
she had to be the heavy.
Even the background Amazon characters, I thought... They just were really well done.
Yeah, they just do a nice job. You notice them, but not because they're like jumping around and trying to get your attention.
No. There's a point where they have like a Senate meeting in Themyscira, and Diana's talking to one of the senators, and like, it doesn't matter what they're being said. For me, what I thought was spectacular right there was this element of costuming, because the senators are wearing something that it like harkens to the Wonder Woman costume. And I loved that because it makes it Themyscirian.
Right.
What she's wearing is a Themyscirian.
You mean the way that Kryptonians wear like full body tights? Because like that's, for me, yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
But no, it's true. That's how it's a DC thing.
But like that's like, I really thought that was just cool, because it wasn't like everyone was doing that. Hippolyta doesn't, like, Hippolyta wears what Hippolyta wears. Well,
does it make it weird that she then puts on this outfit and it's completely separate from everybody else?
Exactly. Okay, there's really one villain and then two puppets.
Yeah, alright. So the villains are weak across the board.
Alright.
I think they're weak. The main villain, the looming antagonist, fine, and I'm glad that they didn't like do a switcheroo, like a deep reality depressing thing where it's like, yeah, no. There are a couple of actors in this movie that play villains. Danny Houston plays like the German that we all think is Ares in disguise.
Sure we do.
And, well, that's the idea. He's the red herring of this movie. He is what I like to call lazy casting. Okay. We need a character that you immediately distrust, who plays a bad guy, and you don't question his motives, and you don't feel bad that he doesn't have like a backstory.
Right.
I think he's awful in everything he does.
I don't know him from much, or I don't recognize him.
And I'm not saying that he did a bad job, but it's more like he's so obviously this one thing.
Right.
And it's like, oh. And he's also the red herring, and it's like, oh. And they don't do anything interesting or useful with him. And with a better actor, I think it could have at least been more interesting.
Okay.
You could have the Batman Begins moment, where it's like, I think Liam Neeson is Ra's al Ghul, but they got Ken Watanabe to play Ra's al Ghul, and they wouldn't waste Ken Watanabe, and then they waste Ken Watanabe. And like, in this, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm smarter than this movie is making me feel. Yeah. And you are.
Right.
And then turns out it's not him. And that's some spoilers about like who Ares turns out to be.
Ooh, spoilers!
Yeah, the second that they established that the Professor Lupin from Harry Potter,
which is literally like, it doesn't matter how many times we've said his name, I'm just like, it's Lupin.
Yeah, it's David Thewlis. But once you see David Thewlis, you're like, hey, I like that actor. He's in there, and he plays some fun. Wait a minute.
Yeah, there was a moment though throughout where I was just like, are they going to do something totally different and make Dr. Murrow?
Yeah, the Ares. That'd be cool. No. Instead, she's nothing, and it's not even worth mentioning. Like, the actress who plays her does a nice job,
right? And
with like the 2 pages of script she's given,
right? And yet, take this as you will, comment section. I appreciated, because as soon as I heard and I saw the pop figure that there was a female villain, I was like, because of course they have to do that.
That's funny. I didn't in any way or any time assume that like Wonder Woman and Dr. Poison were going to have to fight each other.
I didn't think they'd have to fight each other, but I was like, of course they have to establish she's the villain.
Right.
And then it turns out, nah, that's not what they're doing at all.
I mean, like, she is a villain, and she's a character from the Pantheon, but she's not the main antagonist.
Exactly.
She's the mastermind.
Nope. No. And like, I appreciated that.
Yep.
Like, quite a bit. Like, they were like, no, she's gonna fight Ares.
And they do something interesting with her at the end, but it's not even worth mentioning. So, Ares, turns out at the end, Ares was Professor Lupin. And they kind of establish or imply this is going to be the case when Wonder Woman addresses the, male-dominated war room. And she says, this is how wars are fought behind desks. And I was like, oh, you get... Yeah, it's not about 4-star generals that are on the battlefield. It's the true masterminds of war, those who wear a suit and manipulate other people, and that'll be Ares. Yes, it's Ares, okay. Yep. I'm really glad they didn't that they did that, and they didn't go there is no Ares. Your mother lied to you. There's no gods, and we're all alone, and we're all dust. That would have hamstring that character, but yeah, the reveal, while obvious and non-surprising. And by the way, if you didn't see it coming, don't feel bad.
You're not alone.
The entire row behind us didn't see it coming, and in fact commented to no one in particular. Good twist. It was a good twist.
Yeah,
proved
to come into the theater.
Yes, that was a good twist, film. Nice work.
Yeah, if you didn't see
it coming, fair enough. I didn't respond, but I'm thinking to myself, at least it wasn't stupid.
Yeah,
and that was fine. The only thing that was stupid was putting his head on a super buff body when he became Ares.
I felt really bad because I had that moment where I'm looking, I'm like,
you've
never looked like that.
You've never been that buff.
Not even
not even your prime.
When he was a werewolf, he was that buff.
Yeah.
But he was a werewolf.
But he was a werewolf when he was all lanky.
Yeah.
Not in this. No. Weird.
It was weird.
And I liked the idea of him making armor out of weapons.
Yeah, that was cool.
But it looked
Okay. So of course we have Dr. Poison in this, which means that there is gas. This is the age of mustard gas, right. Of course. There was a moment where I was like, I know we're not, but this is where our casting for Ares happens because
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino, that's what
it was. Where he's like, okay.
Yeah, when she goes, when there's a gas filled field, she goes back. I thought that was. I thought our casting.
Yeah, he walks through it and then just breathes it in.
For a second, I was like, look.
I love the smell of mustard gas in the morning.
Yep.
That would have been amazing. Wasted.
No, because it just turned out just fine.
Yeah.
But
it was still cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the big, you gotta have a big silly fight with a bad guy and a good guy at the end of a superhero movie, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that said, at that point I was already sold, so I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't this sucks. I was like, oh, okay, I'm still having a good time.
I thought they did a really good job with the action sequences in this, because we had a nice blend of, downtime, character building, action sequence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Each action sequence built.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, by the end, it didn't have to be, over the top and ridiculous, but it was a knockout, drag-down fight. It was, the final fight, I thought, was really well handled.
I agree. And,
we got to see Wonder Woman fighting different things, and I know it sounds weird, but I mean, on the battlefield, under, complete siege of, a facility, and then against, essentially, a god.
Right, yeah. She fights man, she fights god, she fights machine.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, and I loved that.
Yeah. I think it was just, overall, a solid flick. Are there any standout moments that you want to address before we wrap up?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. I definitely teared up a couple times throughout this film, but not at any of the emotional cruxes of the film.
I was a little sad when we lost Steve Trevor.
Right, okay. Yeah,
I was like, right on, because it's earned.
No, but there were definitely moments for me where, emotionally I was overwhelmed a little. The movie started and I couldn't believe I became...
You cared?
I cared so much about this, and for a minute I was... immediately pulled back, and I wished I was a child.
Right.
Going to see this film.
And in fact, there were a couple of little girls in the theater.
What I was going to say was I was impressed by the age range that we saw go into that theater. Yeah. We saw 10-year-olds all the way up to those maybe in their 70s and entering that theater.
And that's something that needs to be addressed and shouldn't be discounted. While it's obvious to say that women liked Wonder Woman, or that women felt that it's about time to see a Wonder Woman movie, we needed this, and it's about damn time. Yeah. And it's not to be discredited that women would feel something.
Yeah.
It is no comparison, but when I got a Spider-Man movie, I was overwhelmed. Yeah. Because forever I was told I can't have one.
Right.
And that it will never happen. And when I got it, and it came out of nowhere because it was kind of at the fledgling days of the internet, so rumors and such were like, I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. And then I did. And I did also have an emotional response.
Yeah.
And now imagine that being like institutionalized culturalization and how it's like, no, like, take the Spider-Man example and then apply it to all women and all superheroes, and then you have a little bit of an idea what we're talking about. Because, like, it's fair. I mean, not to take the whole point about what you're talking about away from you, but, you know, I think it's worth saying.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's, like, in any way socially justice warrior-y or, you know, political or, you know, gender biased or anything. Regardless of any of the controversy, all the articles or
whatever.
Or politicizing, grandstanding bullshit. It's valuable to have this.
It was.
And if women of any age, little girls, teens, preteens, young adults, or old women who had to be wheeled in via a wheelchair and then aided to their seat so they could finally see Wonder Woman lift a tank in a screen, let them have it.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss it out of hand, because I think that it's something that I couldn't really even quite fathom until I was in it.
Yeah.
And apart from it, you know, like that's something that's not mine. I can't share in that experience. And but I can rationalize, cognitize, and understand it. And like it's worth addressing.
Yeah.
Because it is valuable.
No, it is, and like
and it would have sucked if the movie was bad.
Yes, and it wasn't. So it got me in a couple of places, and it was just, and again, like right at the beginning, like there's this whole like montage of like these warriors just training and doing their thing, and I was
you were overwhelmed.
I was overwhelmed, and like I was like, there are children of like, it doesn't matter, boy, girl, who are going to see this. Yeah. And like for some reason that like punched me right in the face. Mm-hmm. And then of course when she goes up and out over the foxhole. Yeah. Like
that for me, I think that's like the standout moment.
Yeah.
In the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
It's too bad that it's so early, but
no, I mean like it's great. She's like the whole thing.
It would have been a real downer. If like if just Wonder Woman fights World War II and it's hard and hopeless.
World War I.
I'm sorry, World War I. Damn it. I am culturally hardwired to refer to the Second War.
Yeah, no, I know, but no, World War I, and like, but for me, I don't know what it was about this. Like, the whole thing was fantastic. Right. That whole sequence was great. Like,
sequence is easily
she leads a charge of herself.
Yeah.
She's joined by her little party eventually, and once she actually succeeds in making it to the other trenches, the whole other group who've been watching this whole time not going, like, and they keep showing you that they're terrified to go. You just hear them going, she did it.
Yeah, they acknowledge it.
I was just the
disaster. They give it to her. Yeah. No, it's true. And I can appreciate it, because it's like, it's a legitimate moment that I don't think was as hackneyed as some detractors might want it to have been.
Yeah. Oh, no. And like, I don't, like, you know, you liked it, you didn't like it, I don't care. Nobody can take away the feeling I had in the theater. Yeah. Like, that's it. That
and
was
I think
for
it was, and I think it was just well made as a movie. Yeah. So it's not like you were projecting your emotional needs onto the movie so that it would be better. Like, I can say, as a casual fan of Wonder Woman, as a person who's not a huge fan, I dug the flick, and I thought it was well constructed.
I know.
And I'm a person who analyzes and grew up being a film person.
Yeah, and look, I know there are going to be some things that, like, you saw coming, and, like, it's like, you know...
We talked about a couple of them.
Yeah, there's no perfect movie, but, like, for it being an action movie... Yeah, it's a great action movie.
It's a great action movie, and it's well constructed. And I don't think that saying that it was good... or saying that you enjoyed it is in any way, you know, trumping the movie up in any way. No, like making it more than it is. It's a solid movie.
Can I just say too? I love how Patty Jenkins shoots action sequence, like actual combat sequences. Like, okay, so they do like this whole like cool effect on when they do like this like story time like past sequence where it makes it look like it's painterly.
Oh yeah,
like this crazy effect that they do on that, right?
Yes.
And then like on top of that sequence, we see all these incredible combat sequences, right? Where like we see these warriors doing these crazy moves, but you see it's not like super fast.
No.
It's very much.
It's also not like bullet time, Zack Snyder.
No, it's very real and has this certain like heavy weight to it, and for some reason it made me think of like paintings that depicted like Greco-Roman culture.
Yeah.
Like not from their time period, but later on when like we decided we would paint stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know why. I don't know if it was intentional.
Maybe.
But like it brought me to that, and again, it just had such weight to the combat. Like it was very like, while being over the top and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like very like, oh, very real. We have a device that occurs in an earlier fight that Steve Trevor learns from.
Yes.
And then utilizes later on.
Yeah, yeah, you can't argue with that.
No, just a look. It's just a fun movie.
Yeah,
it's
so
just a fun movie.
Over here on ComicPOP, Wonder Woman's a solid flick. It's very fun. It's a good step forward. And if you are not convinced that the DCU might be headed in a good direction, their new opening,
oh my god,
is I think the biggest testament to DC being like, I get it.
Yeah. Because it's just the Justice League opening.
It's the Justice League Unlimited opening.
Yeah. It's just that. It's just the CG opening.
Yeah, it's the CG opening. And not only is it, like, an homage to, like, probably one of the best adaptations of DC properties of all time, but it's also kind of a, like, acknowledgement and a little bit of, like, a middle finger to Marvel. Because, like, Marvel doesn't have... Because, like, DC's like, we do have everyone. Like, you saw Nightwing in that lineup. You saw Shazam in that lineup. You saw Hawkman.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They're just like, look at them. Look at them. We could do whatever we want.
We could do
We're not going to.
Obviously, we're not going to do that movie.
But we could.
Yeah.
And we're not going to because someone else has it. No. We're choosing
It's just we don't want it. We're going to make more Batman movies. Whatever. But, like, the fact that they can do that, and they did, is, like, it was cool to see. It was nice to feel, and I think it was a little bit of, like, a... And how are the X-Men doing, Marvel? Wink. Which is like, you know what? That's a little playful jab that probably is subtext that I'm just reading into, and I'm fine with it.
You know what was great about that? It put me 100% in the mindset to go see that film.
Yeah.
Like, it was so delightful. I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah, it was a way to say, we're doing something else.
Roll the movie.
We're doing something else. We're shifting. We're shifting gears in the right way.
Yeah.
So, there you have it, everybody.
By the way, we did not talk about her arsenal. She used that lasso way more than I think any of us, either of us on this cast thought she would.
And in a cool way.
I know.
It wasn't stupid.
Nope.
She was doing like little rodeo tricks with it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's funny. In BVS, when she used the lasso for like the 3 seconds, and you see it like crackling with energy, I'm like, this looks really cool. I'd like to see more of this.
Yeah, and like
there's a moment where she uses it, and it looks like when Yondu is using his little whistle.
Right.
I was like, this is cool.
It's just really cool because she's got the sword, she's got the shield, she's got the lasso. She uses the she
doesn't throw the tiara.
That's okay with me. Anyone like
when they give it to her and it's got the things, I'm like, how's she gonna be able to throw that?
Oh, the way, I liked it, because as soon as I saw Antiope with it, I was like, oh, that's the thing she's gonna wear.
Oh!
How are you gonna get that?
Oh, she's gonna have to die!
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
But, like, look, anytime, I know technically this one did it first, but every time someone throws a tiara, all I can think of is Sailor Moon.
Right. But,
I know it is, I'm just saying.
Wonder Woman from 2017, check it out, watch it, and you know what? Tell your friends to go see it and pick up a poster. Man, speaking of posters, they right before the movie came out, they released one other one-sheet, and it was her holding a tank.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether it was the right tank or not, it was a great image, and I'm like, I wonder if we'll see that moment in the movie. We do!
You do!
And I'm like, oh, good! I want that!
Yeah.
Just as if you put Superman on a poster and he's doing this, he better do that in the movie.
Yeah.
At least Wonder Woman gets to pick up a tank.
Totally does.
At the very least, the price of admission. It's pretty cool.
Totally does.
So yeah, I dug it. I thought it was cool. So check it out.
Too.
We'll see you guys next time. Another episode Off the Rack. I'm Sal.
And I'm Tiffany.
So long, and we'll see you at the movies.
We gotta change the name when we do these.
No, it'll confuse people. It's called branding.
I know, but like...
Off the Reel?
Yeah, I said that last time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.